Right. So continuing with Dark Souls, right? I think we got that right. So continuing with Dark Souls, continuing the discussion of Dark Souls, as I'm saying, Dark Souls is really hard. At least it was hard for me, and yeah, that's. I'm sure there are people who are better at it than me. People who are. I'm sure there are people idiot savants at Dark Souls who just find it relatively effortless. That said, it's hard and it's famous for being hard. Lots of people have remarked. Yeah, if you look around, you'll find lots of people talking about just how hard it is, right? So there's some. It's not just me being a wimp, although maybe a big part of it is me being a wimp. I doubt that though. Lots of people seem to find it really tough and really brutal. Yeah, Dark Souls. It was just punishing for me. And actually, I wanted to. I thought that was kind of interesting. I've heard that, and I don't know the extent of this. I should probably ask someone who knows more than I do with it. But I've heard that I should add here. Dark Souls is a Japanese game. It's made right, Japanese company, right, made by Japanese designers. I'm sure other people took hand in it as well. But one thing I've heard about Japan, and I don't know to what extent this is true, and I would be interested in comments if anyone knows this better than I or has anything to add. One thing I've heard in Japan is that struggle, right, is not seen as a bad thing. Struggle is not, I don't know if it looked down upon as the right way. The example I heard was that in America, or you send a kid to the board to work a problem in front of the school or something. If the child is really struggling, if the child really can't do it, this is seen as a bad thing, or it's seen as you're being kind of awful to the child, making the child stand there and be embarrassed in front of his classmates. I've heard, again, I don't know if this is true, that in Japan that's not the case, right? That that's seen as a good thing, or that's seen as a positive thing. It's not seen as embarrassing. It's not seen as bad. I don't know, and I would be interested in comments or people's thoughts on those, or if someone has an insight that I don't have, which would probably not be surprising. I don't have that much insight. But anyway, but I guess you could also, this comes up, I mean, one American example I can think of with this is there's the Simpsons episode where they take part in a Japanese game show, and the host of the Japanese game show says something like, your country, your game shows reward knowledge. Here in Japan, that is, we punish ignorance. Dark Souls it seems a lot like that. It punishes mistakes. It brutalizes mistakes, and in that way, it really, I think it is fascinatingly different from other video games. I mean, a lot of other games, a lot of other video games I can think of, a lot of games I can think of. Yeah, there's kind of rewarding of knowledge, or there's kind of a rewarding of effort. You did this, and you get this thing, right? You got this key, you did this thing, now you get this, or something like that. And there are definitely rewards in Dark Souls. There have to be, but a lot of it really seems to be punishment, right? Dark Souls is just, you screwed up, right? You did this wrong, right? This is not going to work, and you're going to be punished, right? The game is going to continue to punish you until you get it right, or until you stop doing that stupid thing. It really is definitely a game I found where it really pushes you to try something else. It really pushes you to try something different, which, let me say, I've really found with Dark Souls, it really pays to take breaks. It's really a good idea to take a break from things and come back to them. If you get stuck in a rut in Dark Souls, if you keep the approach, at least for me, of I'm just going to try this until I get it, it kind of worked, but not really. You really have to try different combinations of things. You really have to try some different approaches. You really have to try some unusual things. You really have to try to employ different strategies, and the game will keep punishing you until you do so. And this is something that this is something that I really like about Dark Souls, in that it's not just hard it's not fair. It really, uh, it can be brutally unfair. It can be just ridiculously unfair. The example from the first game, and really, I'm really only here going to talk about the first game. And these videos, I'll move on to the second game. I'll move on to Dark Souls 2 in a bit. But the game, it's really not fair. There's a boss fight in Dark Souls, and it is by far, it is so much tougher than the others, and it's fundamentally unfair. Now, I should say, yeah, I mean, you can kind of mess with the game, and there are kind of ways of making it a lot easier on yourself. Although I guess like the first time I played it through, I really wanted to do, I don't know, something like, I really wanted to do something like kind of an honest playthrough. I really wanted to take on the games on its own terms, and so I didn't summon help. There's assistance that you can summon for these fights. There are things that you can do. Yeah, I mean, it makes it a lot easier on you. I mean, there's one. Yeah, it makes it obviously right. It makes it tremendously easier. But I really wanted to kind of do a very honest playthrough, and I was also thinking, you know, I really want to kind of like train under the. It sounds silly, but I really want to kind of do this. I really want to kind of train myself under the harshest conditions. I really want to kind of get better at this game, and I got better. But man, yeah, it was brutal. The stupid bell gargoyles. I think I fought them for like 2 weeks. Right? I just fought them for the longest time. The bell gargoyles are a pretty good example of what I mean when I say Dark Souls isn't that fair. The bell gargoyles are generally seen as the first real boss fight of the game. Although I should mention the tutorial is on the tutorial, if you want to call it that, the kind of intro segment of the game is almost just laughably. I mean, for a novice player, right, for someone just getting into the game, it's just kind of ridiculous and kills you right off the bat. Right, it just takes you out almost immediately. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, the tutorial is ridiculously harsh. The tutorial is ridiculously frustrating, and that should give you some idea of the kind of beast that you're dealing with here. Although that said, I mean, you kind of really have to experience it for yourself. I mean, you really, just the level of, I guess, hatred of the player that you're going to be encountering, or Dark Souls' willingness to frustrate you to do awful things to you. So Dark Souls is not fair, and the Bell Gargoyles is one of the first places that really brings that home. You end up on a roof. It's a god-awful place to fight, right? And you end up taking on, as the name suggests, right, a pair of Bell Gargoyles. And this is early in the game, and one of these things is bad enough, and you're fighting this stupid thing, and the other one comes down and pretty much just right, just trashes you, right? Just comes down and completely wrecks you, right? That really is what Dark Souls is like. Now, yeah, so that, okay, fine, but then like, you know, I gotta add, like, just even getting to the boss fight, even getting to the stupid Bell Gargoyles to take them on, is just crazy, because one of the terrible things about, well, not terrible things, but one of the really great things about Dark Souls, and one of the really maddening things, is that the enemies come back. You can't really clear out areas. I mean, you kind of can, but if you rest, if you replenish your health, if you stop, right, if you do that in the game, all the enemies come back. And so I found myself with these ridiculous gargoyles being in the position of, you know, I was having to fight my way through just a ridiculous number of them to get anywhere. And let me also add, like, where Dark Souls is not pleasantly unfair and just cruel. You lose stuff when you die. I mean, there's a real downside. There can be a real loss to dying. Right? You can really feel it. It can really just be a brutal, frustrating thing in the game. So I'll say more about that as we proceed. All right, peace out.